Hare Krishna. So we are here with Navina Nirada Prabhu, our dear friend and guest of honor, and we would like to take advantage of his association because he's one of the very advanced devotees who dedicated his life to spread the mission, and we would like to ask him a few questions so that all of you can take advantage of his association. Hare Krishna Prabhu. So I would like to ask you in the beginning the usual stuff. So please tell us more about yourself. How did you join the movement, and what was the movement about looking, how the movement was looking back in the day when you joined?
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Well, one question at a time.
Yeah.
So I got in touch with Krishna consciousness in 1984. I was in a boarding school in Switzerland, in the Alps. And a friend of mine in arts class, he was drawing a picture of Srila Prabhupada, and he was using the picture from the Bhagavad Gita. And I got intrigued, so I asked him if I could have that book. And he said, no, it's mine, you can't have it. So naturally I wanted it. I found the first canto, part 1, in the library of the school, and I started reading that.
You made a connection between these two.
Yeah, obviously. And there were, a lot of big words, a lot of big concepts. I was 15 years old. But then there was a school break, so he invited me to come to the temple in Zurich. And I did. And I arrived at a train station in Zurich where we had made appointment, but he was already gone. It was like 8 in the morning or something. So I find my own way to the temple, and he said, oh, you mistook the time, we should have been there very early. And so anyhow, they had saved me breakfast. Everything was completely new, the smell of the incense and the smell of the food. But what really struck a chord with me was that all the people that I met were very, very open, very friendly, very kind-hearted. They gave me food, they gave me books. One person came and handed me beads and said, this is what we do, and you chant 4 rounds every day. And I said, sir, yes sir, I can do that, no problem.
Wow.
So it was a very friendly, a very family atmosphere. So I felt attracted, and yeah, I wanted to visit again, so I started visiting regularly. My mother allowed me to go twice a month, and I got to know different devotees. There were some who were very outstanding in the sense that they were very generous with their time. They would answer all my questions, and I could call them also during the week, Gauralila, Atmatattva and Rajavidya, and I could ask them a whole series of questions, and they had no problem talking to me on the phone for an hour or two.
Great.
So that was quite special. I felt a lot of attention, a lot of affection. So that's basically what happened. I was chanting my 4 rounds every day in the park behind our house, and I felt like, I was doing something very special. I started reading Bhagavad Gita and first canto simultaneously, and the whole practice really grew on me. So that's how I came in touch. Then I started hearing about and experiencing that the devotees are going out sharing this message, distributing books, they're going on chanting, they're doing programs. So I understood that this is a mission. It's not just something you do for yourself to feel a little better or a little less worse about yourself, but this is a mission, and the purpose is to help people who are suffering and to change the face of the earth. It's cultural movement for the re-spiritualization of humanity. So that was very, very evident. It was very palpable. So I wanted to take part in what was known Christmas Marathon. Now it's known as the Prabhupada Marathon, the December month, the big push. Yet my mom said, no, you can't do this. You have to finish school till spring. I was in 9th grade. So it took me a few months to convince my mom and to aggravate the situation at home to such an extent that she finally signed off on me. And it's a common scenario. We have to break our parents' heart in order to make them proud. So finally she relented and she signed and she said, but you have to leave. You have to leave right now. And I called my friends and they came and picked me up. I was ready. I had my suitcase, my briefcase, my bicycle. The bicycle didn't last long at the temple. Different people were using it, and after 2 weeks it was destroyed. Front wheel went missing, back wheel went missing, the whole thing went missing. But I didn't really care much because I had found my tribe, I had found my people. I joined in the first week of December on a Thursday, and on Sunday I went, after 3 days staying in the temple, I went on traveling Sankirtan in a van with very, very enthusiastic and very dedicated devotees. And for the next 3 weeks of December, I was with a different group each week. And I could assist them by counting their books, going shopping, doing groceries, and doing simple chores. But I was blessed to be in their association, to observe them, to hear and witness how they were engaging with the public. So it was very edifying. It was a real, you can say, condensed Sankirtan internship. So that's how it started for me. There was no such thing as a Bhakta program or a primer, or it was just we throw you in the deep end and we'll see whether you float or whether you swim or whether you sink. And some swam, some sank, and some floated. So
yeah. So these 3 weeks on Christmas marathon, you were how old? 15 or?
I just turned 16.
16.
Yeah, I just turned 16 at the end of December. Yeah.
So there were stalwart devotees like Rohini Sutta Prabhu was there. I imagine. So
yeah.
You're very blessed to be with them in the very beginning. When I joined, something similar happened to me. Even before I joined the temple, I was already going out. I would come from my hometown and go to the temple, and they would just give me the books, and I would go out. And it was, I remember in the train towards the temple, on the way to the temple, I was like, Hare Krishna, Hare, because I knew that's gonna be a
big push.
Yeah, for me. So
yeah, I had a few outings before where I went out with different devotees distributing books on weekends, and that was quite memorable. In fact, I remember one program. It was probably the first time that I was wearing the robes. I was putting on a dhoti, and I felt really, really, I'm a monk, and obviously I was nowhere near that. But then we drove out in a minivan with about 7 or 8 devotees and instruments and prasadam, armed to our teeth, to go out and spread the message of Lord Chaitanya. And we got to some bombed out youth center in the projects in the outskirts of Zurich, and no one was there because there was a mistake in scheduling, so there was no audience. But we just sat outside of that center on the grass, and we had prasadam, and we talked to each other. And I decided that if this is the worst case scenario, I'm in. Because from a material perspective, no one showed up.
Disaster. Catastrophe.
Yeah, absolutely in negative. But we had fun, and it was amazing. So I said, if this is the worst that can happen, it's good. It's good. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, I sometimes on book distribution, when I have, it doesn't matter, good or medium or tough day, but often I just take a break and I open one of the books that I'm distributing and I'm reading the book. So I was thinking many times, so this is a solid proof that what
The
we
process
do.
works. I mean, it's not theory, it's not abstract, it's something very, very, very palpable. I remember one time walking to school and I saw a trolley that could have been from the post office because the devotees were using the same type of trolleys to do book distribution door to door. But I opened it and it had Prabhupada's books inside.
Ooh.
And I went into the houses nearby looking for the devotee. He finally came out and he took me to the van and we took prasadam together in the van. I remember to this day how I felt exhilarated, how I felt electrified. I was like, wow, there's a devotee here in my town, near my school. And
Yeah.
then the devotees, they gave me pictures, they gave me books, and they were very generous. So I started doing morning and evening artik at home. And I remember one day I was offering artik to Lord Nrsingadev, and my sister, my older sister, she was knocking on the door, and I ignored her,
Of course.
as you would expect. And then later, when I finished my artik, I went downstairs and asked her why she came to disturb me. And she said one of your people was ringing the doorbell, and he wanted to sell her some books. And she said, I already have one crazy guy upstairs. I don't need more of that. So I said, where is he? Where is he? So I went down on the street. I went looking for him. And he was really struggling because it's a conservative neighborhood, you know, big houses, and he was not doing well. And I was super excited, and he was like quite depressed. So his name was Nrsingadev Das. That was funny. I was doing artik to Nrsingadev, and Nrsingadev Prabhu, he knocked on my door. So yes, you have these moments where you understand that this is not a coincidence. This is not just some strange luck of fate, but it is actually Krishna's plan, and I can be part of Krishna's plan. So this is very memorable. I did a summer camp in the farm that they had in Ticino, on the Italian side of Switzerland. They had a big Ratha Yatra, a huge circus tent. That devotee, Nrsingadev, he got married. And it was a beautiful festival, and hundreds and hundreds of people came. The TV came, and it was massive prasad distribution. It was just very, very exhilarating. It was very inspiring.
So, but as far as I understand, the main thing that attracted you in the beginning was the devotees, their generosity, that they had time
yes,
for you.
absolutely. And of course, I was very much into books because I've been an avid reader. I had 6 library cards from different libraries because you could only take out between 5 and 7 books per librry.
It was not enough.
So it wasn't enough. So for me, it was sports and books, and that was basically my life. And just biding my time at school, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. So I had done 4 internships in different places, but I was not really convinced that, you know, which direction, what should I do with my life, you know, continue school, go and study, or, you know, pursue an education, a career like that. So the big questions were really looming in the back of my mind. I had already tried a few extracurricular activities and saw that it's not really that tasteful and not really that appealing to live the material life. So I saw that Krishna consciousness really is the positive alternative, and that was very much embodied by the lifestyle of the devotees. My friend, he joined a few months before me, and I remember very viscerally. I went to visit him one weekend when I visited the temple, and he was down in the cellar, and he was washing what seemed to be like a huge mountain of pots. And he was there barefoot, and I was asking him, like, no shoes? And he said, no, right now, you know, we're a little poor, we don't have shoes, so, but it's okay. And he had a smile from ear to ear, like a big, huge smile. And to me, it seemed like that scene from the from the movie of San Francis, you know, Brother Moon, Sister Sun, where the monks are barefoot in the snow, building the church with bare hands, putting rocks on top of each other and building their church. So I understood this is the real deal. Like this is not just some, you know, some group doing a little something, but this is real. This is really dedication. So it was becoming obvious. Obviously, at that age, how much do you understand of philosophy? I would say, yeah, it was a combination. The devotees, the chanting, the books. But I just felt drawn. I felt like this is something that I can dedicate my life to. This is something that I can actually do. Whereas, yeah, the other things just seem to be very obscure and very unattractive, very unappealing. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was listening to you, I remember Prahlad Maharaj explaining to his teachers at school, because they were asking him, why you became devotee? What's happening? What's wrong? And he
What's
said,
wrong with you?
Right. What happened to you, boy?
Yeah.
You're coming from.
Why can't you be normal? You know? You need some money. You want to go to the mall, buy some toys.
Right.
You know?
And he was telling them basically what you're just telling us. He used the example of the analogy of the iron and the magnet, and he just told them I was just attracted, just like iron is attracted to magnet, and nothing I can do about it. So as a book distributor myself, it's very curious for me. How many books did you do the very first day when you went on books? How many?
Well, as I mentioned, I was blessed because I got to carry the books of some of the biggest book distributors at that time. So I was first-hand witness to their successes, to their failures, to their struggles. So I saw what worked, what doesn't work. I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly right firsthand, and that was very edifying. It was very sobering to see that it's not just a walk in the park, but there's sacrifice. There is austerity. There is reversals.
Yeah.
You know, people who come and return books and they argue and they get upset, and I saw the whole scenario playing out right in front of me.
At a very young age.
Yeah, the first day I went out alone. I went door to door in a small town, and I distributed 4 or 5 books.
Haribo.
One lady, she bought 2 books, and 2 or 3 other people bought 1 book. And then that evening, Rohini Sutta Prabhu, my Sankirtan leader, he asked me, so how did it go? I told him. And he said, that lady who took 2 books, why you didn't sell her the set? I said, because I didn't have a Bhagavatam set. He said, well, tomorrow you go back to the same door with the set. And I said, sir, yes, sir. So the next day I went there, I knocked on the door, she opened, regular housewife, and she said, I know you. I said, yeah, it's me from yesterday. But there was something very special that I wanted to show you, but I didn't have it yesterday. But today I brought it. So can I show it to you? And she said, yes. So I put all the books on the table, and I said whatever little something I knew about the books, and she just said, yes, I'll take it. And I was like,
are you sure?
This works. Meaning, if I follow the good advice and the good wishes of my seniors, then something can happen.
Yeah.
So that really boosted my confidence. And of course, you go through your boot camp, you go through your struggles. I mean, I was very young, and we worked hard, and we ate hard, and then we crashed hard. So sometimes I had to chant my japa on the balcony because I would fall asleep. So I was outside in the balcony in the winter, so I wouldn't fall asleep.
Wow.
Because prasadam was very good, and philosophy sometimes was a little tough. It was a struggle. But after a while, you develop a taste for the Bhagavatam, and you just want more of that. So and then you see how the amount of outreach, the amount of preaching and book distribution that we do, the effort we put in to help others, is increasing our own taste and our own appetite and our own ability to relish, to assimilate, to understand. And you can see how these things are all, it's all connected, man. Then you realize that Krishna is really a person. The Bhagavatam is a person. And it is through this Bhagavatam that Krishna will actually orchestrate this spiritual revolution in the hearts of misguided humanity.
Did you feel at the very beginning that you're joining a revolutionary movement?
No, absolutely. I mean, I wasn't a church boy. I wasn't a good Catholic kid. My attendance was, I may have attended one or two functions, you know, social requirements, but I was very much convinced that I've joined a mission. I joined a group of enthusiasts who have a purpose, who have a cause, and they're willing to sacrifice for that cause. And it was something more sublime and profound than just what I've experienced so far in being a Boy Scout or a Scout leader, or being a sports nerd and thereof. So, but it was something substantial that I saw, that this has a magnitude that it can really make a difference, and it can sustain me. I mean, you pretty much, Sankirtan is a school of life. You learn everything you need to know on Sankirtan. I mean, I was 3 days in the temple, and then I lived in a van for the next 15 years of my life, for the most part.
Yeah. I remembered I met a person on the street, and he was a lawyer. So we exchanged a few words, and he was asking me, so who are you? What are you doing? And I told him I actually graduated from a law school. It happened to be the same law school like he. And he asked me, so, and now what are you doing? I said, I'm selling books on the street. Already 5 years. This was my 5th year. And he looked at me and he said, well, I can tell you one thing. For these 5 years on the street, you learned much more than you learned these 5 years in the law school. I can vouch for this. I'm a lawyer myself. So
nice.
Yeah, people.
Yeah, talking of lawyers, I was just in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and on Paulista, which is the main street, the main avenida there, and I met this young couple, and the man was saying, I was meant to read this Bhagavad Gita for many years, but I never got to it. So I'm really happy you're giving me the book. So I feel inspired to read it. And we had a nice talk. It was wonderful. They said they want to go on a vacation to Switzerland and this and that. And we talked a little bit. And then at the end, they said, so you're a monk. Can you give us some monk wisdom? Like tell us something. They were kind of like, okay, give us a little magic here. So I looked at the guy and I said, you're 31 years old and you're a lawyer. And I looked at the girl and I said, don't worry, he will marry you, but it's going to take time because he's a lawyer and he's a nerd. So, sometimes things take a little time, but he will marry you.
He didn't tell you that he's a lawyer.
Huh?
He didn't tell you that.
No. And then they asked me, how do you know this? I said, you have to read the book.
That's the answer.
Whatever you need to know, you will get to know by reading Bhagavad Gita. Because Krishna says in the Gita that I'm knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So sometimes there are things that we certainly don't know, like I didn't know these details, but Krishna will reveal them to you. And there are other things that we think that we know and we just forgot at the most unopportune moments.
Yeah, it happens.
Like, like the pin code to your...
whatever.
Yeah. To whatever, Yeah. So, it is, you see the practical application of the philosophy in everyday life. And that is really Shastra Chakshush, that is seeing the world through the eye of Scripture. Because people don't really care so much about how much schooling you've done, how many degrees, how many diplomas, etc. They want to know what makes you you, what's in your heart, what makes you tick, why are you doing this.
Yeah.
I was in Guanajuato, Mexico, on the town square. I met a distinguished looking gentleman in a three-piece suit with a hat and a cane and nice shoes and ring and pocket watch and a handlebar mustache. And before I could say a word, he just looked at me and said, "What you trying to do here?" Kind of like, "Hey kid, what's up?" You know, like in New York they would say, "What's your problem?" You know? So I didn't know what to say. Because I knew that whatever I would say, it would probably not impress him. He'd probably not get...
He's too smart, or
Yeah, he's too distinguished. He looks like a lawyer, or a politician, or a retired businessman. And so you don't know what to say. What do you do when you don't know what to do, you know? All you can do is say a little prayer to Krishna, and you got to say something. So you open your mouth, but in your heart of heart, you think that, Krishna, right now, I need a miracle. Right now. Now is a good time. So I told him that I'm trying to develop humility and introspection through selfless service. And he said, humility and introspection, through selfless service. And he was going like this on his handlebar mustache. Humility and introspection through selfless service. How much is it? End of discussion. I could not reach this person. I had nothing to say or to show that would convince him. But Krishna, he did the magic. He inspired me to say something that actually touched his heart. So...
And which is actually truth. That's the funny thing, that when you say...
not just making stuff up because it's a cute thing to say, or we'll sell your product, or we'll catch some attention. But it's actually related to Vedic wisdom, which is what Krishna defines as the austerity of speech in the 17th chapter, text 15, Anudvega Karambakyam, that we should speak things that are pleasing, truthful, and beneficial, and in relation to Vedic wisdom. And then, it will have impact. People will feel like, wow, did you just make this stuff up? And then we have to acknowledge, no, actually, it didn't grow in my own garden, like we're all cooking with water. It's all coming from the same source.
So you joined the revolutionary movement, and this was also my feeling when I joined. So how was this revolutionary movement looking from inside? You mentioned a few things, but sometimes when I hear about these older days, I have a reaction. First, I'm attracted because I really like this. This is also I would say my deepest call. But also I'm kind of scared when I hear these heavy stories, how people were distributing books like 8, 10, 12 hours, and then Devriti Maharaj was telling me stories from Brooklyn Temple, how they would go for so long, book distribution every day, and then Saturday they would go to the concert. So
well, when you're young, you're very enthusiastic, and you have obviously a lot of physical energy that you can channel. So that's not the scary part. The working hard and being fully dedicated to a cause, that's not the scary part. The scary part comes more when you start to realize that I have a constitutional nature as a spirit soul, as a servant of Krishna, but there's also a conditional nature, that sometimes your body, your mind, or your circumstance, your situation may really be an obstacle, may really show you your own limitations, so to speak. And then how to make sense of it, how to balance things out. So that was sometimes a challenge. Also, after doing this marathon, then they put me on selling candles, paraphernalia. So I had to sell carved candles for 3 months to collect for the BBT debt, which later on I found out didn't really exist. It was just something made up. It gave me a chance to learn how to interact with people and how to basic conversation and basic sales procedure. So it was, you could say, a learning curve, but I also realized that you can't just accept everything for face value. You have to do a little bit of your own research.
Even in spiritual institution.
Yes, it's not that you just hand over your brain at the wardrobe and then you just become a zombie and you just do whatever you're told. Because we should not blindly follow. There's this difference between anukara and anusara, that we try to imitate something or someone, or we're really trying to extract the essence and understand what is the purpose and why are we doing this. Of course, the why question was not always appreciated. I still get this now, 40 years later, that when people make certain statements or have certain ideas, and you ask them why, and they feel quite. What do you mean why? Yeah, why?
Become defensive.
Yeah, they become defensive. They say because I said so, or because that's what we're gonna do. So, but I can see that we all have our own psychophysical makeup, and some people are more compliant and some people are more contrary, some are more challenging and some are more amicable. So I got to be me and keep asking the questions and not expecting all the answers to come from outside. We have to do our own processing, so to speak. Like one day I was in a parking lot underneath the earth, outside, underneath the ground. Outside it was snowing and cold. Down there it was so hot you could walk around in a bathing suit. And I had just had 2 wisdom teeth removed that morning, extracted, surgically removed. And I was spitting blood every 5 or 7 minutes. Like I felt like a vampire, that had been hit on the jaw. And I was down there, and it just became so surreal. Like I'm in an underground parking lot where every half an hour this sign goes off. Leave the room, air pollution, because there's too much gas from all the cars. And I was down there all day distributing books. And every couple of steps I was spitting blood, and I was thinking, like, is this real? Or is this just a movie? So then you start to realize that I do have certain needs, and I have to take care. I have to take care of my health. I have to take care of my life, and
So this is the challenge. One of the challenges.
Yeah, of course, and there are institutional challenges which we don't have to get into. But whenever you're dealing with the world of names, there are certain limitations. There are the logistical limitations, people limitations, our own including. So then we have to see what is the way forward. And the way forward is definitely surrender, sweet surrender, because forced surrender only works for a short time. But when we actually understand that this is not just for the greater good, but it also includes my well-being and my good, and you have people...
Because we're part of the whole, right?
Yeah, and you have people around who are taking the time to explain this, and you have a team of like-minded individuals. And for that I felt very blessed, because I had older brothers and uncles who were around, who were available to discuss these issues. So
even back then, when it was...
even back then. And so in retrospect, I would say I would do it all over again. Maybe certain things slightly different, some things not so long, some things in a different way, but I can honestly say that we tried to do our level best, and I felt, and I still feel, truly fortunate and blessed that there was a deep sense of mission and purpose and empowerment. Just to give you an example, in 1991 I was the #1 in book distribution in the world, in ISKCON. So I got a call from my spiritual master from Mayapur, and he said, we just made you the Minister of Book Distribution. Come to Mayapur on the next flight. So I jumped on the next flight, and I was there the next day. And I asked him, so what is my job description? And he said, there is no job description. We're not there yet. We don't have job descriptions. But don't worry, you're already doing it. So just keep doing what you're doing. And if anybody gives you trouble, you send them to me, and I'll take care of them. And I said, okay, we got a deal. Here I was at the bright old age of 23 years old. I'm the marketing director or the minister for outreach for selling Prabhupada's books globally. And I have to attend GBC meetings with people who are twice my age. And so you could say it was a fast-track learning experience. And I also realized my limitations, like where do I fit in? What is my role? But it was a good experience. So for 8 years, I was traveling the world and giving seminars and teaching courses and communicating and collaborating with national Sankirtan leaders, and somehow trying to not just convey the enthusiasm and the inspiration, but also give people a little bit of training, a little bit of structure, a little bit of context, so that they can actually experience the Sankirtan life in a little bit more sustainable way, and see that this is a lifetime mission. It's not just you jump and you run till you can't, but there's actually a lifetime of Krishna consciousness ahead of you.
Yeah.
No matter what ashram you're in, no matter what service you're in, no matter what gender or what country you're in, that this is Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. And I still feel to this day that this is what keeps me going, that I've joined the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's not about this group or that group and this club or that club, because all these other things are very short-lived. They're very short-lived. Yeah. So yeah, we had our fair share of all the different isms that we went through in the 80s and 90s. So, but it's all good in the sense that if we're sincerely trying to please Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, then they will protect us. They will give us what we need, including the challenges and the purification that we need in order to grow, to face our own conditioning and overcome it. So, yeah, it's been an interesting experience.
I would like to hear and to see nowadays 23 years old boy to be elevated to such a position of power and responsibility. It's not happening so much nowadays.
Well, it's a different phase. It's a different phase of ISKCON. Right now, historians will note this as the Great Constipation. This is more the time when a lot of people are living out their last, the bell lap, their last round, so to speak. So there is a lot of insecurity and a lot of territorialism, but amidst all of that, there is also a lot of opportunity. Because wherever there is the greatest crisis, there is also the greatest opportunity. So right now, it's really the time to invest in ourselves and to inspire and to encourage the up and coming and the already acting leadership to not get distracted or discouraged by anyone, especially not their own minds, because this is not just a current scenario. This is a generational challenge that every movement and every society is facing, that you have people in power who are not responsive And if you're not responsive, then that means you're not responsible, because responsibility means the ability to respond. So if you're not responsive, you're not answering emails, phone calls, or questions, then that means you're not responsible. You shouldn't be in a position of responsibility.
Right.
Yet we have failed also to give people the confidence and the reassurance that they can just be sadhus and share the wisdom without holding managerial positions and power. So it always goes both ways. It's always, there's a certain homework that needs to be done by every...
From both sides.
Yeah, from all the sides that are involved in this scenario. And it usually takes a little longer than just a weekend workshop or a retreat or a little meeting. Succession is an ongoing topic that people write their thesis about, and that corporations have built into their structure because they want to sustain their efforts and their results.
Yeah.
And we are a very young movement, 50 years in. I mean, the Christians had nothing till 355 years.
We're doing good.
When Emperor Constantine made it the state religion, we're doing something. We're doing something. At the same time, for those of us who are getting older, we're facing the weight of, is it going to happen in my lifetime? Am I going to see sanity in my lifetime? And what will that sanity consist of? Or will I just put my couple of bricks into the great church of ISKCON and then pass on? So
Bye-bye.
we all have to come to terms with our own insignificance and also the opportunities that are obviously there.
So we shouldn't use this as an excuse. For example, that there are some problems with the succession, etc., for our own personal lack of initiative or shortcomings.
Yeah, because right now you can just go out and do whatever you want to do. No one's going to stop you.
Right.
So no one's going to stop you. They're not going to give you permission or titles or empowerment, but no one's going to stop you. So my humble suggestion is just take initiative, pick up the books and run with it, and spread the Sankirtan movement far and wide. And you will find people who resonate with that spirit, and you collaborate with them. And time will take care of all the other stuff. In 100 years, we'll laugh about all this. So it will, of course, the scenario will repeat and repeat and repeat. So if we would have something like a career counselor, for instance, who would sit down with up and coming, with people who are in between 4 and, let's say, 8 years in Krishna consciousness, and sit down with them and really try to understand what are their needs, what are their interests, their concerns, and their abilities, and try to help them find a service or a situation where they can actually feel that they're thriving. Then I think that would help a lot.
Yeah.
Now, who is going to fulfill that role? In traditional society, that role was partially fulfilled by the elders in the society.
A Vanaprastha type.
Yeah, those who've been around, who have done it, who have some life experience, have been through a good part of life. And sometimes it could be the teachers, it could be the Shiksha or Diksha gurus, different personas, usually a combination, a mixture of all of these. But if that is lacking and that community and family structure is non-existent or very weak, the teachers may be on another continent, on the other side of the world, or they have already passed on, then it becomes a little thin. Then it's left up to the individual.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, we read the books, we studied the books. It took it took me 25 years before I took my Bhakti Shastri. Because it was just not the thing to do. It just wasn't on the menu. Like, you don't go somewhere else except for a week to Vrindavan and 2 weeks to Mayapur in the festival where you move as a closed unit, as a group. You don't go to South India. You don't learn puja or cooking or instruments unless you can't do Bhukti Sivushan. And it's just not so good to get well-rounded individuals who are a bit more balanced.
Right.
Like, we knew how to run and distribute a book, but a few of the other things, it took a while to pick those things up.
Also creates a little bit of danger that you think that you are the best.
Well, yeah, there comes a certain sense of elitism or a certain sense of arrogance. Also, you can say that sometimes comes into the picture, and then you have to pay the hard price, you know, because you get kicked in the teeth. And so this could be done in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
That you just build something in a curriculum where people are just more well-rounded. Also, they're better prepared for progression through ashrams, for progressions through service. But all of those are still taboos in certain parts of the world where people say, you don't talk about this stuff or else you stay out of my city or out of my zone. And you go like, hello, like, you know, like, which planet do you live on? Like, you know.
See the statistics.
Yeah, or have you checked your medication lately? Because without being presumptuous, these are real issues, they're real facts that are discussed in the Bhagavatam, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that they're exemplified through our acharyas. So we can't, nobody has a monopoly on having, you know, the truth and the light and the Holy Grail. I mean, at some point we have to recognize that our own members will actually read the books that we distribute, and then they may recognize sometimes that our theology, our legislation, and our practice are three different things, that they're not really aligned, and they will point out that this is not very consistent, this is not very authentic, it may even look a little hypocritical at times, and what can we do to address this issue, to align ourselves more with our own legacy, with our own tradition. Otherwise people will say, hey, you know, I understand back in the day there was a zonal acharya system, everybody had to accept the same guru because he was the guy, he was the king, he was the emperor, but now, you know, it's not 1980 anymore, like it's 2024. So this whole idea that you have to accept the Diksha Guru who owns that temple or who owns that zone is kind of more something from the past. So, and we would encourage people to take the disciple course before they take shelter, before they choose their Diksha Guru. But unfortunately, it's still quite the contrary, that taking the disciple course is the last thing people do before they take initiation, just to get that little last tick on the box before they get their name and their beads. But then again, okay, you're initiated, great, wonderful, ki jai. Now, what does life after initiation look like? Like, is there a life after initiation? Is there a program? Is there an educational effort to sustain that person's enthusiasm and faith?
To build up even.
Besides go out and distribute books and be productive, because as people get older, sometimes they're not so productive anymore, but they could be productive in different ways. And if we don't recognize that, we just lose out a lot. Like you were mentioning Vanaprasthas, it's the non-existing ashram in our society, because we think like, you know, cows only come in one gender, female, and brahmacharis only come in one gender, male. And that solves all our socio-economic problems. But in reality, it doesn't work like that. So then nature forces us to do our homework, and sometimes it's painful, and it's hard to rebuild your foundation when you realize that I may have banked on something that wasn't that's substantial. And I have to dig out some of that stuff and put something substantial there so I can actually keep going on. And it's not easy. Sometimes it's quite difficult to do these type of operations.
So something from our
Esteemed audience.
esteemed audience.
Thank you very much. So you were...
We know you're out there. We love you. We feel your presence. Share this with all your 5 million friends.
You are brahmachari, then you became grihasta, now you are vanaprastha. What is the difference and what is the common thing between all these positions?
Well, let's first talk about the common thing. The common thing is you chant Hare Krishna, you read Prabhupada's books, you take a shot and you try to be usefully engaged in the mission of Lord Chaitanya. Then the difference is, when you're a brahmachari, at least back in the day, there was no such thing as you have your own program. you were on a tight schedule, on a tight ship. Like I asked my Sankirtan leader Harinamananda, which city are we going today to distribute books? He said, wrong question. It's your job to distribute the books. It's my job to decide where we're going to distribute them. For the first 2 or 3 years, I didn't know the name of the town we were in because it didn't matter. It just opened the door and I jump out and I know at 6:30 I need to be at that street corner. That's all I needed to know. And it really made life simple. I didn't have to break my head. You're like, where's breakfast going to come from? Where are my clothes going to come from? Am I going to India or not? This stuff was all taken care of by other people. And they were kind people. They were empathic. They were nice people. So I was very happy under their guidance. But then, you grow up and you realize that maybe sometimes it's good. You also put in your 2 cents and you give a little input because it's a team effort. It's a collaborative effort. But then when you recognize that maybe you have a bit too much of that tendency to give your own input and to have things your own way, then it's maybe better you move on to the next base, which is Grihastha Ashram, that you have your own environment and you raise a family and you have your own source of income and you contribute to the mission, you go to the temple, you try to be helpful and continue in your spiritual practice. And at some point in your life, your children are grown and you become more detached and you see that there's more exciting things to do than to make and spend money or to enjoy because you already tried pretty much a good amount of that, and that actually nothing has paralleled or given you anything near that ecstasy and experience that you had while doing direct preaching and outreach and book distribution. So then you want more of that, and you start putting in more time with spiritual practice, intensifying sadhana and study. And then Krishna is very responsive. Krishna is very kind. He makes the facility, he makes the arrangement. And then whether you're a van a pasta, that you eat pasta in a van, or you live at home with your family, but there is less economic development and social and all that stuff, and more spiritual activity, those are details. That's just situational, however a person's life will play out. So it's a progressive path. It's not like black and white that you jump from A to B to C to D. We can see in every ashram there are 4 stages. Like we know from Srimad Bhagavatam, there's Kutichak, Bahudak, Parivrajikacharya, and Paramahamsa. So first, even a person who takes sannyas, first he still lives in the kuti. He lives in the village. He has a little kutir, a little shack, and his family brings him the food. Not his wife, but some of his relatives, because he is not trained. He hasn't learned how to go around and preach and move in the world. So, but he's in training. There is in training, even in every ashram. So it's not you jump from here to there because otherwise you tear a few ligaments and you fall on your nose. And then after that, he learns how to move in a region, and then he goes and travels wider. And then at some point he retires and just does his bhajan, and he's just available to share the wisdom with whoever comes his way. So it's really inspiring to see how this Bhagavata culture is a culture of empowerment, it's a culture of succession, and it takes into consideration all the stages of a person's life. So it's really inspiring to see. Now, of course, for most of us, you join late, and then you realize, I know nothing about nothing, and it's kind of painful, and I have to now at the whichever age. I joined young, I was 15, but some joined mid-20s. Then you have to become a brahmachari, and then after 5 or 10 or 15 years of that, they're already mid-40s, and they realize, maybe I'm not a lifelong brahmachari, maybe I would do better to be married. How go about that? How about making money? Where's the girl? Where's the job? Where's the house? It's a little late in the game. So, but it's hard to turn things around, because it just takes a certain amount of time to actually immerse yourself. So now to shrink everything down and say, okay, you do 5 years of brahmachari, you do so much years of that and so much, it doesn't work, because you still need a certain amount of time to reach maturity in any ashram, or else you'll be half-baked. And what happens when a clay cup is half-baked? Then you pour some liquid into it, and it just doesn't really, it's not really that functional or that beautiful. So one time they asked Srila Prabhupada, why did you make that statement that the children of your children will be the pure devotees? Have you ever heard that statement of Prabhupada? That he said the children of your children will be the pure devotees?
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah. So Mrigakshi, a Prabhupada disciple from Detroit, we visited her in her home, and she said that Prabhupada explained why. He said that it is because it's not your children, because your children had to associate with you. And that's why it will be the children of your children who will be the pure devotees. So who says there is no humor in our tradition, right? There's a lot of humor, there's irony, there's sarcasm, and there's a lot of benevolence and a lot of truth also. In every joke there's, the element of fun, and then there's the element of, wow, yeah, that's a fact. So what is our mission? We should try to collaborate and reflect on these topics, so that we don't have to continuously tell our children that it will be the children of your children. It won't be your children, but the children of your children. So we can actually become more exemplary, be more of a role model, so that when the younger generations look at us, they don't go like, who is this grumpy old man, or who is this grumpy middle-aged woman? But yeah, I would like to become like this person. That's how I felt when I went to the temple. Like, I want to be like these guys. This is my people. This is good. And they proved to me that you can do this, kid. Nobody said, oh, you're 15, Like, I went to the Catholic Church, and I remember, they said, hey, you finish your school, and then you go to seminary, and then you study, and then so see you in 10 years, Like, you got a lot of schooling left to do. And I said, schooling? No way. Not another week of that. I'm done with that. Now, of course, I still went back and got my degrees, better late than never. But the point is that if we can't give an example that others can emulate, then what are we trying to achieve here? What are we trying to sell? Are we here to sell a product? Are we here to make a buck? You can flip cars or real estate, or go and become a stockbroker. You don't have to go on the street and sell books about God, about a blue boy who plays the flute, that a lot of people find a little amusing or strange. But why are we doing this? We're doing this for our own refinement and to give people an opportunity to find out about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is not only all-powerful, but also all-loving and all-kind and compassionate, which means he gives everybody the opportunity to come closer to him. That's why Krishna says, everyone's on my path. And that includes all the ashrams. Otherwise, we start out with this misconception in life that I joined the ashram and I start at the top. Why? Because I'm super duper. So I'm super hot brahmachari. And then if I can't do this anymore, then what happened to him? Oh, he fell down. What? What happened? Oh, he got married. You ever heard that one, right? No. He got married means it's graduation. It's celebration time. He moved on. He successfully completed his study and he moved on to the next ashram. And then again, the same thing. Oh, he got kicked out, or someone left someone, or someone wasn't happy, and now they're alone, still looking for opportunity, but not really done with it. No. Then at some point, it will come that we realize that, yeah, there are more interesting things to do with life than just running after the things of this world. And there is enough taste and enough meaning and mission and purpose in this Sankirtan mission that everyone can find their place. Srila Prabhupada built a house in which the whole world can live. He got up every morning, every night at midnight to translate 6 pages, to give us these books. Because that was his vision, law books for the next 10,000 years. So he certainly gave us ample of example to see what it is to be a visionary, what is it to see the bigger picture and ask the real hard questions. Like he called every one of his leaders in Mayapur and he asked them, are you convinced? Are you convinced? 3 times. He almost yelled at them. And everyone was quiet, not knowing what to say. And Prabhupada said, because if you're not convinced, how are you going to convince anybody? So leadership means 3 things: vision, education, and training. It's not about making laws, it's not about rules, it's not about policing and enforcing. This is administrative. It's about vision, education, and training, yes. And that's preaching, yeah. That's what we should be concerned about primarily. And then other people, they can fulfill their role and take care of other things. Yes, it's important to ensure that your temple actually belongs to ISKCON and not to some private individual who put his name there when he signed the papers, at the bank. And 30, 40 years later, you find out that your temple is not owned by ISKCON, but it's owned by some individual when he dies and his kids have nothing to do with it and just want to sell the property. So it's important that we have people who look into these things. It's important that we have people who look into compliance and into accountability, that the accounts are properly kept, that the money goes where it's supposed to, that we're doing our duty on behalf of the government, so they don't want to shut us down, that they actually feel these guys are for real, they have something to offer of substance, and they may even want to take some input from you, like it happens in certain countries where devotees are doing those things. So, yes.
You were talking about being a role model, and I just want to hear a little bit more on because in the beginning the majority of devotees were in the temple, congregation was just starting to develop, and now it's more the movement matured a little bit, so it's the opposite. There's more members in the congregation and in the temples. So I'm just wondering, because you're one of the rare people who actually took the next step, went to the 3rd ashram, how to feel confident about doing this step, how to really see it as something that's beneficial for me, for the society, how to kind of emulate this mood.
Thank you. Well, we got to have faith in Krishna. That Krishna talked about this. He talked about this in several places in the Bhagavatam. It's there in the Uddhava Gita. It's there before in 7th canto, all different places. So it is part of our legacy, part of our tradition. It's not something we can ignore. And because of a misapplied way of doing things, doesn't mean that now we can say, oh, this is all wrong and it doesn't work. Or we try to follow it by imitating and saying, okay, now you got to dress in tree bark and not shave and not cut your fingernails and all this kind of stuff. Then things won't work so well. I just didn't finish, my little thing about the ashrams. Yeah, so you think I start at the top. I'm super duper brahmachari, and then he fell down, and then he got kicked out, and then he didn't really know what to do with his life and where his food would come from, and then he took sannyas. And then all of a sudden people started giving him respect and money and position and flowers, and now he's giving loans to grihastas who don't have money. So it kind of sounds familiar, but at the same time not so ideal, not so inspiring. So first of all, we should read the books that we distribute. And so we'll familiarize ourselves with these, not just concepts, but with this culture, the Bhagavad culture, and also see how we need to contextualize it. We need to extract the essence of that and apply it in our own lives according to our capacity. And the primary is always bhakti. The primary is always our devotion to Krishna, our spiritual practice, our sadhu sangha, our japa, our preaching. And then how much of these other elements you can incorporate, that depends on your time, place, and circumstance, on your individual persona that is involved. And I would say ideal is utopia. Prabhupada tried very hard to institute varnashram, to institute farms, to institute gurukuls. He saw that it wouldn't be easy, but he expected us to understand the principle and then to figure out the details. So it doesn't mean that you can jump into a time machine and live life like they lived life 500 or 5,000 years ago. But we have to understand the essence of what they were doing then. Then if we can understand the essence, we can also apply that in today's day and age, in that context. And believe it or not, it will work. Because it's Veda, it's wisdom culture, it's knowledge. Now the way how you will move in the world, the way how you'll be dressed, the way how you'll be interacting in detail will vary because of cultural, societal differences. But the principles, the rules of engagement will be the same, which are basically there in all traditional cultures. And that's why the world is still working to some extent, because there is some family structure, there is some piety, there is some education. Otherwise, everything would just go haywire. It just all would go south. And the way how we move through the ashrams, again, it varies. But there should be mentors, there should be guides, there should be role models, because the culture is preserved not through legislation, not through laws, but through role models, to people who are inspiring to us, that we associate with. I remember my grandma, she would just take me to the pool and read me stories and cook whatever I wanted to eat and spend time with me. And I went to spend every year 1 week with her, went there alone with my little suitcase I don't remember, maybe I was 5 or 7, went there by train. And so if we don't have elders, if we don't have wise women and men who've been through life, who can share their experiences and their wisdom, then we're depriving society from a great wealth. If we're forcing or thinking that they should stay productive in management, in power, to the last moment that they breathe. Srila Prabhupada said that we should die on the battlefield of preaching. That doesn't mean that you hold all the positions till the day that you pass on, but it means for life, means for productive life. If you're not productive anymore in that capacity, then we can always be productive in a different capacity. The Pope, the old Pope, he retired. He saw he wasn't that popular and not in such good health, even though he was the greatest scholar that they had, probably. He wrote over 100 books, but there was a few issues, and he retired. And another person came in. Presidents retire, so this whole idea of I have to die on the big chair and nobody will get the keys except from my cold hands is not a very progressive, it's not a very inspiring, it's not a very, a very practical scenario. Or else there will be big gaps, because then you'll have all these missing generations of people who just went somewhere else to do something different, because they see, hey, I'm not needed here. There's no opportunity for me here. So I'll find, either you create opportunities or you create opportunists. You know what an opportunist is? A guy who finds his own opportunity somewhere else. So I didn't ask for a position. I was called to serve in a certain capacity. And then when I got married, then I handed it over to someone else who was having all the enthusiasm and the qualifications to do that service. And he did much better than I did in many ways. But we also have to recognize everyone is an individual. We all have our own nature, our own capacity. So I can't be you, you can't be him, he can't be her. And so unless we value individuality, we will never really be able to value and appreciate unity. And vice versa. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. You can't really have unity without diversity. And you can't really have diversity without unity. It's like achintya beta beta tattva. Otherwise you end up being either a mayavadi,
Pradam. No individuality. Pradam.
Yeah.
Yes, everything is homogeneous.
Yeah. Or you just say every man for himself. Me against the rest of the galaxy. Postmodernism. Don't trust no one. No path, no teacher, and no
narrative.
No
Narrative.
No narrative, yeah. Just make stuff up every moment of the day. And then you end up with what we have nowadays, which is just a big cacophonia of idiosyncrasies, which is not really working, and it's not really attractive, and it's not really satisfying to anyone. So unless there is a positive tension between tradition and innovation, between that generational pact has to be there, that we need everyone. We need all the people involved in this. We can't do without them. Unless we understand that, it will be very short-lived and one-sided and unproductive. And yes, we hope that our future generations will do better. We're only here for a few afternoons doing our small little part. So it's very exciting to see how you are working here in Bulgaria, spreading Lord Chaitanya's movement, and there's been different attempts to establish the movement, and these attempts are still ongoing. But Rome was not built in one day. And a good church doesn't make for the Vatican, They say in Italy that just a good church or a good priest does not equal the Vatican. And Prabhupada said you should study organizations like the Catholic Church, who've been around for thousands of years, and you should see what went right and what went wrong, and because history repeats itself. And otherwise we will have to pay the same price that all these organizations did right now. For every Catholic that joins, 6 people walk out from the church, 6 people quit. They're only making converts in the developing countries, which were formerly known as the Third World, Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, where they're still converting people with all the billions of funds that they collect in the First World and pump it into those places. So in our organization also, we could put on our thinking cap and think, okay, why don't we invest a little bit, first of all, into our own people, by training, systematic training and education, and then also in emerging markets, in places where there's great opportunity for spreading Krishna consciousness, but there's not much resource, there's not many people there not many devotees there, not much preaching going on. So that would be quite an exciting idea. Instead of having...
You need missionaries for this.
Yeah, we need missionaries for this. At this point, while we're talking, there's 55,000 Mormons at this moment, somewhere in the world, preaching the gospel. On a 2-year mission, funded by themselves, by their own money that they saved up and that their families put in, for them to go on a 2-year mission. And if you don't do that, you're not a Mormon. If you don't pay 10% to the church, you don't get into the church because your access card doesn't work. If you don't go out every week and you canvass, then you're not a Jehovah's Witness. So I was in Chosica near Lima, Peru, and gave the Sunday feast talk, and we had a nice gathering there afterwards, and we took prasad, and I walked out, and I met Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and other evangelical groups who were going door to door preaching their mission. And none of our people was doing that. So I was thinking, like, we swayed a little bit from our missionary drive, which, agreed, may have been a little one-sided, a little exclusive, a little fanatical, but that's natural with everything that you start doing. You get super excited about it. To being more a social gathering for people who just feel comfortable being around like-minded individuals. So how to keep that missionary spirit alive? I think education is really the tide that raises all the boats or all the canoes or all the dinghies, whatever it is that floats your boat. So it is education. And that starts with ourselves, that we pick up one of Prabhupada's books every day and read at least a few verses. Can you do that? Yes. Thank you for your audience participation. And believe it or not, in 2 years you will read the whole Gita. In 46 years you will read the Bhagavatam, even if you only read one verse. But you got to start today. Because a day without reading is a day wasted. How much time do we spend on our phones, on the web, on just spacing out or doing mindless things? So always carry a book with you and carry a couple of more books that you can distribute, because people will ask you, why are you not getting angry? Why are you different? Why are you not doing the stupid stuff that everyone else does? And then instead of giving them the big talk and giving them your social media, you just give them one of Prabhupada's books. And believe it or not, it will change lives. It will have huge impact. I was just in Trinidad, and one very senior devotee said when he was 17 years old, he found the Bhagavad Gita in the trash, in a garbage can. And he read it, and he joined the temple. And then his family got upset and wanted to bring him back. And they came to get him. But his dad, he liked it so much, he also joined. And then they were the majority. So then they stayed.
Everyone surrendered.
Well, I'm not sure if they all surrendered, but they had enough ammo to state their case. So there's a lot of opportunity, and it's not all good and it's not all bad. The world is not black and white, as we may have noticed. There's all different kinds of shapes and colors. And Krishna has a plan, and it's a very benevolent, it's a very kind plan. He's calling all living entities to come back to join his eternal pastime. And that is the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sometimes people say, yeah, I just want to hear Krishna stories and Krishna Lila. Why about all this mission and running around and doing stuff? But unless we dive into the ocean of the Sankirtan pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we won't be able to actually come out on the shore of Radha Krishna's pastimes. That is the only way. We can't jump. You can't jump to Radhakund. When the devotee asked Prabhupada, he said, I want to go to Radhakund. Prabhupada says, no need for that. There's already enough monkeys there. You don't have to go to Radhakund. It's not that we're boycotting Radhakund or the gopis, but we have to understand, what is my position. I'm very fortunate to be here. I'm a servant. I've received this great gift, this great legacy, which also brings some responsibility, that I first of all, accept it and internalize it and relish it myself, and then that I share it with others, with whoever I might meet, in whichever capacity that I have. And I can do that by giving someone a book, giving someone an invitation, telling someone about Krishna, giving them prasadam, but all of that, and especially spending our time, sharing our heart with them. And that will be attractive, that will be convincing.
I very much like that you always repeat that it's a teamwork. It's not just individual job to grow spiritually. My last question is, if you have complete power, what are the first 3 things you would improve in the Hare Krishna movement? You can do whatever you like. Everyone will listen to you. What will be the 3 things?
Well, listening is not enough.
You're
already downgrading from total power to just people who listen to you.
And then they'll do.
If you had the magic wand, what would you do?
A very good question.
This is a very good question.
Gives us time to think about it.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, we all have to come to terms with our own insignificance and our own cosmogonal importance in this venture. So everyone has their unique qualities, and speaking for myself, also unique deficiencies. So to be aware of that requires good association. So to create that good association, that means community. What do we have in common? Not that we think, oh, I don't want to be part of this. I don't want to be part of this temple or this community or this project or this venture. So we become more, number one, we become more authentic, that we actually imbibe Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission. That we actually go deep into, okay, what are the 10 purposes of ISKCON? What does it mean? How are we going to do this here? Then, in which way can every individual best serve? Otherwise we get stuck always in just self-preservation and doing the needful and just getting by and kicking the can down the road. And of course, we may say that's what life is a lot about to some extent. But if we don't have time to actually sit down and think about the real issues that really matter, then when will that ever get done? When will that ever get addressed? And then we will have the wherewithal, the confidence and conviction that we can make some of those adjustments. They might be hard adjustments sometimes, that we see that people are stuck in certain positions or in certain roles that are really conflicting with their persona. And that we find arrangements to ensure that people can serve in a capacity that's more conducive. Now, of course, there's surrender involved in every ashram and in every service, in every position. It's not that, oh, you found your spot and now it's just going to be peaches and cream and it's just you're going to fly high and it's all going to be wonderful. There is sacrifice and austerity and struggle in every situation. And we're in the mature world, so it's never going to be easy, so to speak. So, again, if you would say three categories, I would say vision, education, and
training.
Yeah, education is training. Vision, And then naturally you will have number 3, you will have succession, you will have more empowerment. Because that's what you have to do when you're building teams. You have to see, okay, what are the positions that are required, who can best occupy them, how can we train people and equip them, and then, like you could see in Lord Chaitanya's pastime, and I'll close with this, when they were performing the Rath Yatra in Jagannath Puri. There were 7 kirtan parties from different parts of India, different styles, different dress, but they were all chanting Hare Krishna for the pleasure of Lord Jagannath. And Lord Chaitanya, he expanded himself, and he was dancing simultaneously in each and every of those 7 kirtan parties. Now, most people thought he's only dancing in my group. He's my Lord. He's with us. But some who had the consciousness of Prem Sankirtan, of appreciating everyone else and collaborating with everyone else, they could actually see 7 Lord Chaitanyas dancing in 7 kirtan groups. So to the degree that we expand our teamwork and our vision, to that extent Krishna will empower us to see the bigger picture. And that means being a team player. That means rejoicing in other people's success and struggling because of other people's failure and helping them to improve. Because we understand that it's a team effort. And we're all here to please Shri Shri Radha Madhava. We're all here to give pleasure to Krishna. And then Krishna will empower us and use us as an instrument. And that is, according to Srila Prabhupada, the most congenial form of intimacy, the most exalted ecstasy and pleasure that a living entity can experience. So let us join our hands and our hearts to take part in the Sankirtan movement. And it's not just about one person's success and glory or failure and damnation, but we win as a team, or there's only winners. Either we win or someone else will win a little later on and just scratch their head on like, why did these guys not figure this out a little earlier? Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtan. Mahaprabhu already declared it. The Sankirtan movement is a success. The only question is, am I going to be part of that success? That means I have to be a team player. Otherwise, if I'm insecure, territorial, and stuck up, then I will just be removed by the forces of time. And so if we want to do something that's memorable, let us study the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita and dive deep into this mood of cooperation and team spirit. They were all gurus in the CC. They didn't pull rank, and one tried, Ramachandra Puri. But for the most part, it was very congenial. Everyone was sitting there with Parikshit Maharaj, and they were wondering, what next? What next? And there comes this 16-year-old naked kid who walks out of the forest, and he comes and he sits down and he talks to Bhagavatam. And his father is there, his guru is there, his param guru is there, and everybody is happy because they know this is Krishna's plan. They're not like, hey kid, you can't do this, get some clothes on, no dhoti, no devotee, or no one was there. Everybody was appreciating. Now, as we are passing into the second half of our life, and we realize that some people will always consider us babies and kids, and some people will always think we're dinosaurs. So then that means you can happily retire, die before dying, right now, and give up this idea that I will find the ideal situation and the ideal service and the ideal ashram. It's always going to be a struggle. But what do you have? You rather have the sweet struggle for Krishna, or you get crushed by the Kala Chakra and by the three modes of material nature. So we are blessed, we're blessed. We're here today because of the great sacrifices, the prayers and the tears of our ancestors. Srila Prabhupada and his followers, they have sacrificed so much to give us this opportunity. And we should, in the mood of Srila Prabhupada, treat every person who walks through this door, including this mosquito, as a future leader of the Hare Krishna movement. And believe it or not, some of them will become the future leaders of the Hare Krishna movement. And yes, some will do fantastic things and some will do outrageously stupid things. But it's all good in the greater picture. So I'm very confident because Lord Chaitanya has made this proclamation, and we can already see so much happening, so much success, and people are responding in such a favorable way. I just gave a program in Bucharest, Romania the other day, and after the program, a young lady, she was late 20s, early 30s, she's a publicist, she said, I'm really amazed that my generation never had access to this kind of information. So then later on somebody talked with her outside and asked her, so how, because I said at the end that if we ask ourselves, how can I serve? Then that will be the key to unlock all that potential, to make a difference, to be part of the solution, to overcome all these shortcomings. So she asked her, so how would you like to serve? She said, I would like to be involved with social media and you know, publicists, you know, they have their ways of getting a message out there. So instead of thinking in terms of legislation and liability and efficiency, what about effectiveness? Are we having impact? Are we actually living our tradition, or could we do better? And I think we all agree that we can, but we need each other. We need sadhu sangha, sat sangha, truthful association. People who tell us what we need to hear in order to become our better selves. And then Krishna will do the magic. He will empower, as he always does, but in different ways. It's not that it is predictable how the whole thing will plan out. Prabhupada said, I had no idea. I just tried to follow the order, the instruction of my spiritual master. I just tried to bring this message to the West. He had no idea. In his humility, of course he had some idea, but he didn't have an exact step-to-step plan. And he was willing to try things, and some things worked and some things failed. And he tried other things, and he adjusted things. So it's not a stereotype process. And Krishna is he's very kind, he's very responsive to the desires of his devotees. So let us imbibe this mood of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan pastime in Puri, and start with Chaitodarpana Marjanam, Gundicha Marjana, as we have heard from our friend, and cleanse our heart to the process of hearing and chanting and studying Prabhupada's books in the association of devotees, and then see how we can apply ourselves to this momentous task, the task of the hour, to make a difference in this misguided civilization. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hari
Haribol.
Krishna.